want to ask you a question about your ideal day in your photography.
Oh, perfect weather would be the start. Normally, I would say sleeping in, actually. Except the problem with that, of course, as I've learned many times over the years, is that some of the best photography and some of the best just photographic experiences happen at sunrise. But for me, it would be, kind of being out in nature and, for me, especially out in the mountains. Some of my favorite experiences photographically have been in the Alps and the Pyrenees mountains in Europe, and especially, early morning, crisp morning, beautiful blue skies, maybe a few scattered clouds to make things a little bit more interesting, and just be, exploring, not having a specific plan. As much as I'm big on planning in photography, I often talk about the Photo Pills app, for example, so you can plan for exactly where the sun or moon's going to be. But some of my favorite travel and photography experiences revolve around road trips, and I especially love road trips where there's basically no plan, where each day it's just let's hit the road and see what we discover, and we'll end up wherever we decide that we're going to end up. And so, first and foremost, good weather, a good location, and good photography.
That sounds pretty great. Yeah, I'd recommend the same. It's just, going on trips and traveling, but having not really a fixed agenda like that. Do you just find that to be more freeing?
Yes, and so often, and I've done well. Number one, I've traveled somewhat extensively and in a wide variety of different ways, different modes of transportation, and sometimes it just makes sense to have a plan and a schedule. But with no plan, it feels so liberating, and more importantly, is that you can tailor your photography. So, just as one example, I had this road trip that my wife and a friend of ours took through Spain, and I think it was about 2 weeks long, and we were starting and finishing in Madrid. And we decided that we would try to make a loop around the country, essentially. And Madrid is more or less in the center of Spain. And so the idea was that if we started running out of time, we could always make a beeline back to Madrid. And the beauty of the experience was that we could get to a location that we thought was going to be really cool, and then maybe find out it wasn't as, interesting as we expected, or photographically just wasn't inspiring us as much as we thought it would. And so we could just move on. We could just hit the road and see what the next town had to offer. And so some of those cities, it didn't necessarily resonate. Not that there was anything wrong with them, but, certain locations didn't quite resonate, didn't inspire us as much. And then we get into the Pyrenees, where we're zigzagging between Spain and France, and that was just incredible. So we really took our time there. And, then as we get back over, Barcelona and start working our way south, there were some areas that were interesting, some that were less. And so we stayed longer in the places that we really liked, and, spent less time in the places that didn't quite work for us. And actually, as it turned out, unexpectedly, we were able to, move a little bit quicker than we thought we were going to move. And so we had a little bit of time to spend just a little bit of time in Portugal, which actually ended up being one of the highlights of the trip. And so just having that frame of mind of flexibility, and I think you can be more creative when you don't feel rushed, you don't feel like you're tied to a specific schedule. And so both for me personally, kind of psychologically, I guess you could say, but also creatively and photographically, I really love trips where you just don't know one day to the next what you're going to do. And in a way, it doesn't matter, in the best way possible, where you can just, we could have gone to the first stop on our road trip and stayed 2 weeks there and then just gone back to Madrid. It could have worked out however it was going to work out. And I think having that flexibility it's wonderful. And to me, it makes for a much more enjoyable experience on top of everything else.